Alrighty, everyone, welcome to another episode of our TSG podcast. For this episode, I have a special guest with me, our newest member of the Strength Guys, Dr. Kate Cohen. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining our podcast. And hopefully with this podcast, people can kind of get to learn about you and what you're providing for us with the Strength Guys. So usually the first thing I always like to do when we have a guest on is, even if maybe a lot of people know you, we might have listeners from all around the world that maybe have never heard of you, or maybe kind of heard of you as a lifter, but maybe not as far as your background in sports psychology, or maybe the other way around. So if you want to kind of give us a little timeline, if you want, first of both, like how did you get into
Sure.
powerlifting, when it was, and how did you then get into like sports psychology as well?
Oh, man. All right. So I have been competing in powerlifting for 14 years now. I started really getting into the gym when I was about 15 years old. And that all began when I tore my first ACL. I was a three-sport athlete. I was a competitive soccer player. I was a pole vaulter. And then I wrestled on the boys wrestling team at my high school. I was the first female to wrestle there. So when I was playing soccer, I tore the first ACL, I didn't actually know I had torn that ACL. So I kept playing, as any athlete would probably do. So I was in physical therapy for about 9 months for that first one. And my physical therapist at that time, he was the one who started getting me towards the end of my rehab program. He started getting me into squatting, benching, and deadlifting. So that was the first time I ever touched a barbell, was in PT. And then I was cleared for 2 weeks and was playing in my soccer game, tore the other one. So I was back in physical therapy with him. And so lo and behold, it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. And that really began, that changed the trajectory of my life. And that's what really began me getting into strength training and lifting and really honing in on those technique aspects and all of that. So, I've been lifting ever since. And and then I did my first competition at 18 years old. Once I graduated high school, I kind of needed something for the competitor in me. So I did my first powerlifting competition and didn't do too bad. So that's when I stuck with it. I think my second competition, I got the American Collegiate deadlift record. So then I start thinking to myself, I'm pretty good at this. And then it kind of took off from there. So that's sort of what began, I guess, simultaneously began both, like my love for the mental side of sport, the love for powerlifting. And when I was getting my master's, I had to choose a thesis topic, and my master's was in health promotion. And I didn't really want to choose something that everyone else seemed to be choosing. So my thesis topic was what pushes one athlete to want to achieve that elite level status, as opposed to another athlete who has maybe the same or very similar physical capabilities. And that kind of began the whole mental performance aspects.
Cool.
So, yeah.
A lot of interesting stuff there. It's funny that you say you hurt yourself during soccer, and there's some research out there on injury rates in sports, and people sometimes assume like, oh, lifting weights you're gonna get injured, but like weightlifting has like one of the lowest injury rates versus soccer has one of the highest injury rates. So
oh
it
my
makes
gosh,
sense that
you're just moving in so many different planes, and especially female athletes. I'm sure we've seen the research on that, and the shifting. And let's be honest, like when you're a soccer player, they're not working with you like on mobility aspects and technique aspects. So you're just doing your thing at 15, 14, 12 years old, So yeah, so that kind of started it.
Yeah, so that's actually something we like talk about in our TSG mentorship that Jason put in there, and with soccer
Hmm.
being one of the highest injury rates. So it's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Then the next thing you mentioned is also in our mentorship, which is also research out there that one of the highest predictors of getting like an ACL injury is having an ACL injury on the other side, because now you're then like
Yeah.
compensating.
Hey, I was doomed from the start. I was doomed from the start, but I look back and that sort of formed everything. So that was really the foundation part of all of it. So,
Yeah, and
yep.
it's interesting hearing that like from the very beginning you were like a elite level deadlifter, so it kind of makes sense from the start until now you've just been crushing it on
Yeah.
deadlifts.
Just kept going. So, today I have the national deadlift record for USA powerlifting for the 48 kilo weight class. I have the national total as well. Um, I don't think I'm going to be spending too much more time at 48 kilos because it gets a little harder to keep cutting like that. So it's time. It's time to move on from that weight class at least.
Yeah, makes sense after that many years. And yeah, I want to kind of go over some of the accomplishments as well. Yeah, I saw 2 times national champion. You said, the national total record, national deadlift record, and top 5 all time in the 48 kilo class. So that's a lot of great stuff in the 48 kilo
It's
class.
okay.
Maybe it's
It's all right.
time to go up and try a new weight class as well.
It's time. It's time to play with the big boys, big girls.
The other thing I want to ask you real quick is between soccer, pole vault, and wrestling, which one was your favorite?
Whew. I think my first love was always going to be soccer because I played that since I was, 3 years old, since I could kick a ball. But and then I got into pole vaulting when I was in high school. So, I didn't really want to run track. Like I was on the track team, but I didn't really love it. I just used it to stay in shape for soccer season. And then my brother wrestled on the boys wrestling team. And so, well, obviously the boys wrestling team, but he was a senior and I was a freshman. And I just wanted to compete no matter what. And I thought I could always do what my older brothers could do. So I asked the coach at that time if I could come out and try out. And he said, yeah, come on out. My brother was livid at first. He was not happy. So once it got going, then he was very supportive. But oh man, my parents did not hear the end of it. He was like, my little sister's not wrestling on my team. It was a whole thing. And that made me want to do it even more. But soccer was always the first love, no matter what. I just loved it. And I probably would have played forever. But yeah.
And then out of those 3 sports, do you feel like one of them transferred over to powerlifting the best?
Mentally speaking, wrestling for sure. I remember the first practice I was out for wrestling, and I think I puked my guts out. It was I was not prepared for that type of training, and just the excess movement and the going hard for the 6 minutes and the live wrestling and the conditioning was just on a whole different level that I was not used to. So I would say that wrestling probably sort of, got that grittiness going, especially. And then I sort of paired it with injury and the injuries I had been through, and then the wrestling of we just don't quit no matter what, and combine those 2 things, and it breeds, a lot of good things.
That's what I thought you might say, because yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
before like wrestling can transfer to other sports like mixed martial arts or even just like powerlifting. It's
Yes.
like just the amount of like hard work, like you said, the grittiness, also like the
Yeah.
experience of already doing weight cuts, so you're kind of already used to that aspect
Yes.
of it, and also the
Correct.
wrestling itself may have more like controlling your center of balance and like controlling
Yeah.
how you engage your core and like holding your position and stuff. So
Yep.
some of that may transfer.
Knowing where you are in space and everything. So yeah, for sure. For sure. And now you got a whole team riding on your back, so you can't let them down either. So that's a problem also. Even though you're an individual on the mat, you have everyone else behind you. That's if you lose, we lose points here, So
Cool. Well, let's jump straight into what our main topic is, which is kind of your world, which is the sports psychology. And I think the first thing we kind of want to go over is give people like a little introduction. If people maybe heard the term but don't really know what it means, is like what
Yeah.
does sports psychology actually mean, and or at least what it
Yeah.
means to you.
Yes. I will give you what most people sort of chalk it up to is just the mental side of sport. But it's more than that. I would say that we look at sports psychology through maybe like two different dimensions. One of the dimensions is the performance that happens on the field or the court or on the platform or the mat or whatever it might be. And then the other side of sports psychology is going to be like the counseling and clinical side. So while it deals with this performance on the field, it also deals with more, I would say, severe issues that maybe the athlete or the performer is going through. Another aspect of sports psychology is that it's not just for athletes, it's for any performer. So we might not think of a musician as like an athlete, but yet they're still in that performance context. We might not think of a surgeon, for instance, using sports psychology, but they are because they're performing every single day of their career. CEOs, bosses. So sports psychology is maybe more than what people think it is. They just think, mental side of sport. Like, yeah, if I have a confidence issue, then I'll just turn to a sports psychologist or a mental performance coach. But alongside that whole aspect is that we deal with many different topics. It might be confidence issues. It might be burnout. It might be injury. It might be arousal, anxiety regulation, motivational aspects, and so on. So, yeah,
That's interesting that you say that, yeah, it's not just for athletes. And when
yeah,
you kind of said that, it kind of makes sense to me is that, like you said, a musician or a surgeon or a magician or whoever, a comedian
yep,
may also be people that perform. And so they may have
yes,
performance anxiety, they may have confidence issues. And then also you said injuries. Like imagine if like a musician hurts their hand and they use their
yeah,
hand for the music, then that can really like change like how they feel about themselves and who they are now if they can
everything.
never play their instrument again, everything like that. So
Yeah,
it goes
yep,
beyond just powerlifting or other sports as well. It's
yeah.
interesting.
And I would say that like when I first began my doctorate for the program, I was sort of surprised as well that we weren't just talking about sport and athletes in a sense. I was like, oh, it's for everyone. It's not just for, it could be for anyone that's performing, anyone that's going through, a new parent. Like think about that. Like now they're having to go through the unknown and having to perform and teach and learn and grow, and especially in their new role and everything. So yeah.
Cool. And so then you said, it's for everyone, not just for athletes, but also just for specific athletes since they're the ones kind of listening to us.
Yep.
When do you think like an athlete should decide like, oh, I should work on the mental side of things? Should they wait to a certain point or no?
No. I'm sure you're going to assume that I was going to say that. No. Like I would say that from day one, you're working on the mental side of powerlifting or strength training from day one. Because if you don't start practicing that from day one, you might be able to lift weights all day, but what happens when it gets stronger and stronger and stronger? What happens when you put more weight on the bar? If you never practiced it before, how can we expect you to do it when now it's getting tough? So I would say from day one, it's important to start, you know, contemplating it and thinking about it. Even like goal setting, that's a part of sports psychology. Are you goal setting from day one? Of course you are. So it's even if you might not be aware that you're using it, you probably are using it. So now you could hone in on it and actually use the tools and resources and get better at it.
Makes sense. And yeah,
Yeah.
I know a lot of times people will try and associate like strength levels with like, hey, I'm beginner, intermediate, or advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But then you do get the people that are maybe very elite in strength, but
Mm-hmm.
then maybe very beginner, for example, when it comes to executing the platform, maybe due to
Yeah.
anxiety or other things like that. So then, yeah, if you
Yes.
maybe weren't working on those things and you're just focused on getting stronger and stronger, then you're in a situation where you have like this
Yeah.
imbalance.
it's a huge imbalance. And for what? Like, why would you let that fall to the wayside when you could have both like sort of working in parallel and kind of build them up into something that, oh, I have the mental side, I also have the physical side, I'm untouchable at this point, you know?
Yeah. So let's get into some of these different areas that we've been mentioning that I think I try to pick some of the ones I think would be most beneficial for
Okay.
listeners because it's the most common stuff. The first area we kind of already mentioned, I think, is confidence because
Hmm.
it is something that's issue with powerlifters and I think it goes across all levels. So for like beginners,
Yeah.
I always hear this whenever handling someone. They're always scared of like the first attempt squat. The first lift they have to go out there,
Yeah.
especially if they're the first person in a flight, they kind of
Yep.
freak out and it's a confidence issue. And then on the other spectrum, if you're like elite level lifter like yourself and you're trying to go for like a record deadlift or
Hmm.
trying to pull for the win on the
Been
final
there.
deadlift, that can be a confidence issue as well. So
Been
let's go
there.
into that area first and kind of maybe if you want to give your thoughts first on like where does confidence come from for someone? Why does
Oof.
someone have confidence versus when someone doesn't?
I think confidence, ultimately, what we would see mostly in the research is that, and I would agree, that confidence probably comes from past successful performances. So having having these scenarios or these experiences that you've already been through, that you have shown to yourself that you've already been through it and you've gotten through it successfully, is only going to breed more confidence. But how do we do that first little scenario? Like, that's always the question. And sometimes, even a first time competitive power lifter, when they're going out for that very first squat ever at their first competition, sometimes they just have to go through it, and I think that trial and error is a huge confidence booster, because once you've been through it, you now have the blueprint of how you're going to get through it again. And sometimes it might be successful, sometimes it might be a complete fail. But if that scenario ever happens again, you know exactly what to do, and you could be more confident in that scenario. So I would just say that confidence isn't some like elusive thing that we're trying to like trap. I would say that it comes from the things that you've already been doing or been through before, and then that sort of takes off into other areas of your life. Maybe, oh yeah, I've been through a scenario where I was like giving a presentation and I was really nervous. Oh, like if I'm talking in front of a big group of people next time, like I've already been through that. I'm good. I've gotten through it, right? I talked to myself and I was able to get through it. And like now I'm a little bit more confident. And each time I do it, I'm a little bit more and more confident. So I would say that confidence is a thing that comes from maybe your past a little bit.
Yeah. And that's what I thought is that maybe it's good and bad that it's something so simple
Hmm.
of like having past experience and the more
Yeah.
specific that past experience is, the better it's going to be for doing whatever you're going to do. But then it's tough because like, well, what if it's my first time, like you said, the first
Yeah.
competition. And
Yep.
that's why like, for example, for me, whenever I talk to people online, people want to do their first competition. I always tell people like the sooner you can do it, the better, because if it's like a
Yeah.
lower, stress level, it's a local competition, your numbers aren't any
Yeah.
good, you're not going for any records, you're not
Yep.
qualifying for anything, like cool, go out there. If you mess up,
Takes
you
the
mess up,
pressure
it's
off.
learning experience. The longer
Yeah.
you wait and the stronger and stronger you get, the higher expectations you have for
Yeah.
yourself or people have for you, then it's going to be more and more stressful. And I tell people the
Yeah.
longer you wait, the less likely is you're ever going to compete because the stress is going to build up so much.
And those expectations are everything. Like, we have to, mitigate those expectations if they're beyond, like, well, how about just go out and I know we say it, like, go out and have fun. Just do it. Like, use your things. This is no different than being in the gym. It's another training day. We say it. It's maybe a little bit more high pressure of a training day, but it's another training day. Technique doesn't change. Your system shouldn't change. In fact, like, confidence shouldn't move anywhere. If you're a confident person, you're probably going to be confident in many different areas, many different environments of your life. So confidence is sort of something that we say like needs to be gained or earned or generated. And it's true to a degree, but I would say that if you're a confident person, you're going to be confident in multiple areas of your life. We had this activity that we did, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it was a confidence boosting activity, or at least a confidence prover. And it was about, there was a bucket in the middle of the room, and everyone's in a circle around the bucket. And the presenter at that time said to each of us, do you think you're going to make the ball in the bucket? Yes or no? And each time he would ask all of us. And sometimes we'd say yes, sometimes we'd say no. And then the follow-up question to all of that was, did you lose your confidence when you thought, no, you weren't going to make the ball in the bucket? And of course, we're all like, yeah, of course I thought I was losing my confidence, and I had more self-doubt and all of that. And at that point, he basically said, your confidence shouldn't go anywhere. If you're a confident person, it doesn't matter if you get the ball in the bucket or you don't think you get the ball in the bucket. Your confidence stays stagnant, stays the same, right? So I've always remembered that, to think to myself, yeah, like confidence, even if the scenario changes a little bit, the confidence part shouldn't go anywhere. So
That's a cool little a little
yeah,
trick, I guess, because I was going to ask
well,
you like what kind of habits people can use. So would you maybe kind
yeah.
of use that like in a powerlifting competition where the person should maybe have more positive thoughts right before their opening attempt?
Yeah, of course. Even thinking about, like, what have you been through? Like, what has your prep consisted of? Did you hit any PRs? And even if you didn't hit any PRs, what were some of your wins that you took throughout your entire prep? Because not everyone's going to PR throughout their prep, but maybe a beginner lifter for sure. But as an elite lifter, maybe you're not PRing once throughout your entire 12, 16-week prep, you know? So it's like, well, what wins did you have? And then that starts kind of building up the confidence level, at least in the moment, you know, like, oh yeah, I did this, I learned a new technique, I learned a new exercise, whatever it might be, you know, I honed in on my focus levels, I worked on, you know, getting my routine a little bit more strict and so on. So yeah, I would say just having a log of the things that you've already done is right in itself going to be helpful.
That's cool. Yeah, it might be a little
Yeah.
addition I have to use at some of my lifters. For me, I try and do more of like mimicking the competition as much as
Mhm.
possible. So like,
Yeah,
hey, if you're gonna
that too.
do a heavy single in the gym, kind of do it like it's a competition. Get the commands, maybe
Yes.
put your singlet
Yep,
on, time your breaks and everything like
for
that.
sure.
And then for some people, if they can maybe do like a mock meet or like a
Yep.
unsanctioned competition in their local gym or whatever,
Yeah.
hey, get you a little bit closer. And then it's like,
Yep.
okay, then you sign up for this local competition and you've already kind of done the things to transition to that
Yeah.
competition.
Preparation is key. As if you could keep as many things as possible the same from training into competition, like there's nothing else that's kind of getting in the way. If you could practice scenarios where maybe everything's not exactly perfect, maybe a bad ref call, like, or a bad judge call. I mean, like, what are you going to do next? What would your attempt selection be? Can you practice sort of refocusing? Can you practice kind of getting back on track? So those types of scenarios are also going to be great for confidence, and especially when you bring it to that high pressure meet, or maybe even a local meet, which is also maybe high pressure for you.
Yeah. And I guess that's something we can touch on under this confidence area as well is that, powerlifting has 3 lifts. So let's say someone misses their third squat or their second and third squat. You may have one lifter who can turn around and come back and execute well on bench and deadlift. And you have the other people where it just kind of like snowballs out of
Oh,
direction. They start missing all their benches and deadlifts and everything just goes bad. Do you think there's like different things that people think about or do in those moments in order to direct them in the right direction?
yeah. So I'll start with the negative aspect of it. Um, I think that when someone can't get back on track or on route with continuing their lifts and can't get off the lift that's prior that they maybe failed, maybe they did fail 2 out of the 3 squats, right? They're still in the game, but that's not exactly ideal. Um, and I would say that part of that is going to be that maybe they are chalking their self-talk up to be very identity related. If it's identity related, now it's no longer about the lift. It's now, I'm a failure. I can't lift. I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. And then that creates excess anxiety, excess pressure, excess like that choking status and all of that. So if the self-talk tends to be identity related, where that person doesn't have a broader, broader roles and broader identity, then it tends to be a recipe for disaster. Now it's no longer about what they're doing in the moment. It's no longer about, I just didn't execute that lift well. Maybe my technique was a little bit off. Okay, I'm going to change it for the next one, right? It's no longer productive, rational type of thinking. Now it's thinking about everything that's going wrong and everything that's sort of about themselves and who they are as a person. So that is, I would say that anybody who's not able to get back on track, any competitor, and you ask them what it is are you thinking about that you're not able to get back on track, or what's going through your head right now, they're going to say, I'm a failure, I'm weak, I can't do this, I'm not ready for this, and so on. So yeah, I would say that's a big, big part of it. So how do we change that? Well, kind of going back to the prescription. What is it that you didn't do well? Or what is it that didn't go in your favor? Well, I just didn't get to depth enough. All right, so the next one, I'm going to try go a little bit lower. The next one, I'm going to put more pressure in my feet. The next one, I'm going to grip the bar a little bit further out. Things like that. So.
And then let's say someone misses their third squat, and now we have to move on to bench press. If you're a lifter, what are you kind of like telling yourself, or if you're a coach, what are you telling a lifter, like how much to think about the third squat, and then when's it time to move on to the bench press?
Leave it. Leave it. As soon as you walk off that platform, as soon as possible, just leave it, Like we say in baseball, like when does the pitch begin and when does the pitch end, right? And I'm kind of going to a different sport because maybe it's a little bit easier to understand. So at what point does the pitch begin for the pitcher who's maybe going out to the box, right? Well, their routine maybe starts the moment their foot gets onto the dirt, right? And that's when it starts going. And when does the pitch end? Does the pitch end as soon as the ball leaves their hand? Or does the pitch end when it reaches the batter? So we have to decide, when is the pitch beginning? When is the pitch ending? It's the same thing with powerlifting. When does the lift begin? Does it begin in the warm-up room as soon as you're about to go out and that's where your routine starts? Does it begin when your last warm-up is happening in the warm-up room? Or does it begin as soon as you touch the barbell, So we have to decide that part. And then when does it end? Well, it ends as soon as I let go and I get my white lights, I get my red lights. Does it end then? Or does it end after I have to go back into the warm-up room, have to think about it? Well, the sooner it could end, the better, right? Because we still have 6 more lifts that we have to worry about. And so we have to leave that in the past. And that's not to say that you can't still build a freaking total, because what is powerlifting? It's a totals game. It's a strategies game. So what do we need to do maybe to now make up for some of that total? And I would say that's coach's responsibility. If you have a good handler, a good coach, they're going to do that for you most likely, right? That's sort of, coaches and handlers are really good about taking that pressure off of their athlete, where now they could say, okay, now I need to strategize for my lifter, what it is their attempts need to look like, and how we could make up some of that difference that we lost from squats. But I wouldn't say that maybe it would be the lifter's responsibility as much to think about all that nitty-gritty stuff. So maybe if they're a more elite level athlete, then fine. They're going to do it inevitably, thinking oh shit, now I need to do 2.5, 5 more kilos on bench, and I need to do 20,000 more kilos on deadlift. Oh my God, how am I going to do that? All right, well, I still need to think about bench. I still need to think about deadlifts. So you're moving on anyway, no matter what. So
yeah. It's interesting. It's maybe something I instinctively do or understand what you're saying, but I never actually thought about it. When does the lift actually start and when does the lift actually end? Because I would think, from my perspective, I think a lift maybe starts typically when I tell a lifter to get up. So when they're in the chair resting between attempts, when I tell them hey, we're 3 out, get up, that's when the routine starts. They figure out if they're going to drink their water, what they're going to leave at the table, what they're going to bring with them.
Yeah.
how are they going to wrap their wrist? How are they going to chalk? What kind of
Right.
cues the coach is going to give to them? Take their headphones off as like all part of the routine before they even go
Yes,
out there.
that's the pre-performance routine. So is that a part of your lift? Then that's when it starts. I think for me, like mine starts as soon as I start closing my eyes and start visualizing the lift right before I'm about to go out. Like that's the process I need to start with, and that's what's kind of saying like, oh, you're in it now. Like now it's time to get serious. So yeah. Everyone's going to be a little bit different in that regard with every athlete. But you should still have a routine, and you're probably still going to have a process that you follow. And that's an important part of really executing is having a consistent routine and a consistent system that you follow, as opposed to just throwing chalk up in the air and hoping something falls on your shoulders. And I'm hoping I do well today. If not, I don't know what happened. Yeah.
Definitely, I agree. We want some kind of routine.
Yeah.
Ideally, the routine is like simple and so it can
Yeah.
be repeatable, and
Yeah.
also it doesn't take too much time because for some lifters, I'm like telling them to do a warm up, and it's just taking so much time for them to like pick their song, chalk their hands, wrap their wrist, adjust their knee sleeve, and I'm like,
Yes.
we're spending
Yes.
5 minutes just to get ready for this one warm up. So ideally, as lifters, especially because you're on a 60-second clock, you want a
Yeah.
routine that's like short enough and
Boom,
repeatable and
boom, boom.
consistent.
Like, yes, I need a boom, boom, boom type of routine, not a like, let's drag our feet type of routine. Like, let's go. That gives me a little bit, speaking of sports psychology, that gives me a little bit of anxiety. Like, when I see competitors back there and they're just like, ah, la, la. I'm like, let's go. You're out next. Like, what are you doing all the way back there? Like, you have to get going. But that's just, I think, a matter of being in it enough times and really seeing like what works, what doesn't work. Oh man, I used up 55 seconds. Well, next time I definitely have to make it wait. I have to pick my song a little bit faster. you know?
Definitely. I think the next topic we can kind of transition to that also I kind of see happen regularly for lifters, especially some of the high level lifters, is like burnout.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a beginner lifter and you're just getting into powerlifting. Everything is fun.
Yeah.
You're going to local competitions. You're hitting personal records. You're hanging out with your friends. But then eventually other things may happen. You may
Yeah.
stagnate. You may deal with injuries. You may just do too many
Right.
competitions and training gets repetitive. So eventually, like lifters are going to lead into having some type of burnout. So I guess
Correct.
the first question is like, how can someone recognize that it is actually burnout and not something else?
Yeah. So I would say that. So if we're talking about like a laziness aspect, because I know you and I have talked about that a little bit, the laziness aspect is that you just don't care. I don't want to do it. Right. So we could separate that and distinguish it from burnout in that burnout is I want to do it, but I can't. And I think that's the difference is that now I'm feeling a little bit out of control. Like I have intent to do it. I have intent to go train, but I just can't. I just can't bring myself to do it. Um, and maybe there is an aspect because burnout, we have the three categories. We have physical and emotional exhaustion. We have maybe like a cynicism about oneself where like I'm just hopeless, I can't do anything. And then we have a personal devaluation of the sport or sport devaluation. So basically, like, I just don't care about powerlifting anymore. Like, I don't care if I win. I don't care if I do well. I don't care if I lose. I just don't care about it. The only reason I'm doing it is because maybe I've done it so long and I just can't quit now. Like, what else would I do? Nothing else maybe gives me a feeling of competency. And once that competency is thwarted, well, like, who am I? Am I still an athlete? Am I still a record holder? Am I still a person that everyone's going to know about, or am I just kind of forgotten about? So I think there's multiple dimensions with that. Is that what is burnout? Is it, do you still have intent? Do you still want to do it and you just can't bring yourself to do it? And then two, well, why are you still doing it? And is it because you feel entrapped in the sport? Is it because you sort of have this unidimensional identity and you don't know who you are outside of the sport? Is it because you feel like you're forced to stay in the sport because of friends are still in the sport and you want to be able to see them once a year, twice a year? And now we're starting to contemplate what's my purpose for being in the sport. So I think that's a valid question to ask athletes. What is your purpose for staying in the sport? And that's kind of when someone's expressing that burnout, fatigue, want to do it feeling, or maybe just can't do it, or life stressors. I ask them. I kind of go back and retract, and because I think they get away from that purpose part. So why are you still doing the sport? What's your point? What's your purpose of being in the sport? Why did you start the sport? I started because I loved it, right? Well, what's your reason for being in it now? Well, now I've been doing it so long that I just can't leave. I don't know what else I would do. Okay, well, do you have support outside of the sport? Well, yeah, maybe I have my family. I have some friends out of the sport, but most of my friends are in the sport. Oh, well, that's a thing. Can we develop some of those relationships outside of the sport so you feel like you have other things that are beyond it? So things like that is kind of the burnout versus laziness aspects. And how can we get someone away from feeling burnt out? Well, we could talk to them and ask them why they're feeling burnt out. Maybe it's a life stressor thing. Maybe they're juggling 2-3 jobs, right? Maybe they just had a new child. That's hard. For a new parent, we see it. We see, masters division, lifters. They just had a brand new kid, at home who's keeping them up half the night. How do you go and train like that? Well, if you get that consecutively and consistently every night where you just feel like crap going to the gym every single day to train through it, you're probably going to start to feel that fatigue and burnout feeling. Is this even worth it anymore? I don't know if I want to do this. This is a very selfish thing when I have a newborn at home, So long-winded answer, but
No, I like it. There was so much good info in there. I was like, I don't know which direction I want to go with all this information. But I think one of the first things that kind of came to my mind is kind of when you mentioned the devaluation of the sport. And so I'm wondering, as far as that, do you think if someone is maybe feeling burnt out and they're devaluing the sport, that they can take let's say some time off, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and be able to then value the sport and come back? Or does it kind of feel like once you're done, you're done?
No, absolutely not. I mean, across the board, burnout literature says try to take that long break if you can. So 3, 6, 9 months. You don't have to do a competition every 5 minutes. I know some people that do, and they're still in it. Good for them. I think if I was doing a competition every 5 minutes, I would feel that burnout feeling too. After I'm done with prepping, I'm get me away from a barbell for at least 2 weeks, But I would say that, absolutely try to build in time off, or build in, it doesn't even need to be time off. Build in something that's different, right? Different type of training, functional training, or training that's more cardio based. As powerlifters, we don't like doing cardio, right? But cardio based exercises, or some other type of training that maybe is not touching a barbell for at least a month or 2 months or 3 months. If you are feeling those burnout levels or that degree of burnout, then do something different, or chalk your wins up to something different, not a PR. No, this time around, I'm going to be working on just strictly technique. That's a huge direction change as well. Make it about something different when you're going to train, because that kind of brings the fun back and the challenge back a little bit. It's not always about PRs. Sometimes it's just about maybe, I don't know, it could be a support thing as well. Talk to a new person when you go to the gym, right? That's building a network. That's a challenge. That's something that's exciting to an athlete as a whole. Anything that's a little bit different. I want to get good at this. Okay, I want to get good at talking to people. I want to get good at working on some other type of training and movement quality and so on.
Yeah, I know there's definitely those two groups. After a competition, there's the people that are just hey, I want to take a break from the coaching. I want to be out of the gym. I want to go do other thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they enjoy cardio or sport. Maybe going eat some food they weren't able to have, or drink or whatever.
Eat it. They eat the food part.
then you have the other people that are hey, I'm going to be in the gym on Monday and we have to get right back to training. What should I do? I need to get ready for the next competition.
Yeah.
And I see it. There can be pros and cons to both, but yeah, maybe the people that want to get right back to training every single time and get ready for the next prep, and they have to feel
Yeah.
obligated. Oh, I have to do this local competition. I'll have to do nationals. Or I have to do worlds. Or I have to do this
Yeah.
invite meet. Then that kind of just leads to that, like, they're always in competition
Prep.
mode, always in training mode. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always in prep, and you just never get like a break from it. There's like has to be some mental recovery as well, like mental recovery, not just physical recovery. Mental recovery is also important. If you could build in times where you get mental recovery, you're way, way, way less likely to burn out. So,
Do you think there's also an aspect now from other sports that are coming into powerlifting, is that not only is there maybe their own expectation of like, oh, I have to go do nationals or I have to go do worlds because
mhm.
I'm a high level competitor or whatever, and I can't skip out on nationals this year. I go every year.
Yeah.
But now there's also this additional obligation. Maybe people are sponsored and maybe they're doing it for a sponsor because they're going to get a certain amount of money. Or if they get invited to a certain competition and they know the
Yeah.
people are sponsored by them, that I feel obligated to do this invite competition and things like that, where now you have this like additional stress that we didn't have in the
Yeah,
sport before.
it's an extraneous like circumstance because it's like, well, what does this mean to you? And I'm sure like let's be real, like does a sponsor want to see you going through a meet? Like just because you're a sponsored athlete, does your sponsor want to see you going through a meet that you're really dreading to go through? If like they're the only reason that you're going through it, I would I would almost say like probably like 99% of those sponsors would be like, you don't have to do it just because like you want to please us and you want to make us happy. Or like, what's the reasoning for it? Oh, it's because you do it every year. Like, do you want to do it this year? Well, no, but I feel like that pressure to do it. All right. Well, is there another meet that's after that that you could still feel that like satisfaction and fulfillment that would be just as like meaningful to you? So I think meaning goes a lot into that meaning making of like these competitions. What's the point? What's the purpose of doing it? And if it's just like you have on the pros list to please my sponsors or to win a check, like we need to go to like the cons list of like I'm burnt out, I'm fatigued, I want to break, I just feel obligated to do this, and so on. Then like let's weigh the pros and cons here and try to find a happy solution between maybe like the athlete and the coach and so on. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that pressure part is tough. I've been through it. I mean, like, I feel like obligated to go to this competition because, like, maybe like you're defending a title. Like, I need to do this competition. Like that's where I sort of belong at this time of the year. Well, like we need to evaluate what's worth it, what's not worth it, and so on. So
Yeah, and I think it could get interesting as maybe the money gets more and more, and if someone's
yeah,
livelihood is dependent on a sponsor or winning competition
yeah,
money, and it's like, okay, I feel obligated to do these competitions to win, let's say, $100,000,
yeah,
and if I take a step back, I lose out on that. How am I going to make my money another way? So people are going to
yeah,
get more and more into being like a pro powerlifter or full
yes.
time powerlifter,
Well, now
and
it's
that's
career
something they have
based.
to. Yeah,
Yeah. Now it's career based. Now we're talking about like intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Like, what are the sources here? Like we know that it's unfortunate because we see that a lot where like what starts out as like a lot of intrinsic motivation slowly, because inevitably you're winning checks and you're winning medals and you're in like the limelight and all of that, it slowly begins to be like extrinsically motivated, and what starts off as like the love for the game becomes now like taking away the love for the game for something that's sort of outside of you. And I think that's a tough balance to work with. We call it the over justification effect, where like what starts out as a love for it becomes slowly trickles into like being a very externally motivated type of thing. So
interesting. I know for myself, what's helped me like to stick around in powerlifting so long, and other things like people who
yeah.
watch my Instagram stories, maybe I know that I dance salsa here in Miami for a
Love
number of
it.
years now.
You are
And
good. I've
thanks.
seen it. You're
And,
very good. Way better than I would ever be able to.
and I think for me, when it comes to powerlifting or dance or whatever else that keeps me around,
Yeah.
that I found is like giving back in some way, like volunteering
Yeah,
or teaching
for
someone or
sure.
doing something for free or whatever like that. So like
Yes.
just like helping someone out, maybe at a local meet of like,
Mhm.
it's their first competition or
Yeah.
whatever, or even just like refereeing or like running a competition, then
Yes.
that kind of helps me like maybe like continue to love the sport and stick around. Versus
Yeah.
if I was only competing, I'd feel like maybe I'm just like taking, and I feel like maybe then that
Yeah.
would lead to more burnout. So maybe even for like
Yes.
these sponsored invite meets, is like people can be like, oh, well, I don't want to compete, but I'll come referee, or I'll come
But I'll
spot
do
and load, or
something.
I'll do live
Yes.
stream or something like
Yep.
that, and still be able to be a
Yeah.
part of it and help out and feel good about it.
Exactly, because now you're still, like, within the crew, like, you're within the crowd of it, but you don't have to put all that pressure on yourself to, like, say to yourself, "Now, I have to compete here." Like, language is everything. I have to compete, like, how about, like, I get to compete, you know? Like, if it starts becoming I have to compete at this one, we have a little bit of a, thing that we need to deal with here, right? So,
It's a little bit of, I guess, expectation versus gratitude, which we
yeah.
won't go all deeper into that. What I want to do is do a little quick transition and do a
Okay.
little game, like for our
Oh,
podcast.
boy.
We're new, we're developing it. I want to throw like some games out there, maybe some
Okay.
interesting, more lighthearted topics. So these aren't like aren't super deep decisions that you have to make. It's just for fun. So my
Oh, no.
first thing is my first game is, which of these hypothetical subscriptions would you pay for? So
Okay.
first one, we'll start off easy, is would you pay $250 per month for unlimited fast food for the rest of your life, but you can't buy it for other people, only for yourself?
Okay. All right. Um, no. No, I'm not like, to be quite honest, I'm not a fast food person. I it
What about
makes
if it's like also like Chipotle and Five Guys and
See, now you're kinda, like, going into territory that I'm a little more down for, like, I love Chipotle. I would still say no, though. I just like I'm so boring because I like, my food that we cook here and that, like, I know it like, what's the ingredients. I don't know, I just, like I don't know. I would say no because I feel like I could spend my $250 per month on something a lot better, like, mental performance coaching or what.
All right, let's see if you like this area better.
All right.
Would you pay $1,000 per month for unlimited economy flights anywhere you want in the world?
Oh, heck yeah.
For
Absolutely.
yourself, though, you can't bring someone with
For
you.
myself, absolutely, because I feel like I spend more than that on, like, the economy flights to begin with. So, yeah, $1,000, like, and it's a deal, good to go. I don't know. There's a lot of traveling that happens, and I feel like when you look at the statements at the end of the year, most of it's just flights for competing and, like, well, like, or travel or vacation to get some break. So, yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say yes, that's a hypothetical situation I could get down with.
All right, so you're more of a travel girl. Now, while you're traveling around the world, would you pay $200 per month for unlimited use of every gym in the world?
Oh, yeah, like, I mean, what are you paying for a day pass anyway at these gyms? Absolutely, they're charging 70, 80 bucks for a day pass to begin with, so, like, yeah, you got 2, like, you're already good. You
Uh,
know? So, 100%.
those day
That's a
passes. Go ahead, go
Those
ahead.
day passes are everything, but that's a hobby of my husband and I. We'll go to visit different areas, and then we'll absolutely check out like one of the best gyms in the area, most well-known gym in the area, and that's what we'll plan to work out for the day. So that's like a little bit of a hobby anyway. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, those day passes are getting ridiculous. I feel like early on, it's like, hey, it's like $5 or $10 drop, and
Yeah.
some gyms might be like, don't even worry about it because they
Yep.
just want people to come into the gym or whatever. Now I
Yeah.
understand the other aspect of maybe you want to prioritize your members, so you don't want to bring
Yep.
too many day pass. So now day pass like
I get it.
$20, $40,
$40.
$60.
We don't want you people. Like, you have to go somewhere else. They're almost like saying we don't want you, but like we'll let you if you like you chalk up some money. Like, that's fine. Just don't destroy our stuff.
All right, last subscription. Would you pay $500 per month for unlimited coaching that includes programming, nutrition, physical therapy, meet day handling, mental skills, everything? $500 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, because like, what are you paying to begin with for per month, like for a one of those coaches? Like, so yeah, you get all in one, inclusive. Yes, absolutely. Because that's worth it. It's like you have to see what I would value is like the coaching expertise and getting better and mastery and all of that. So yes, for sure. And then having a whole team behind that, like, yeah, it's a no brainer there. So yes.
Yeah, I guess it's a combination of what you value and then obviously what the person can afford.
Yeah.
You know, everyone has different incomes around the world, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're already paying maybe 150 to 250 for like the coaching. Then you may be
Yep.
paying like another 100 or so for nutrition. Then you
Yeah.
may be paying like 100 for like meat daily handling every single competition. And then
Yeah.
you may be paying for like a physical therapist every time you get injured. It's like,
Right.
oh, let me just put it all together.
My brain is like calculating. I'm like, okay, 100, 200, 300. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Um, yeah, definitely what you value. Like, I don't really value fast food. You guys could keep your fast food, but
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed the game and people got to learn a little
yes,
bit
it was
more
a lot of
about
fun.
you. Yeah. So we'll jump into the next topic, which I'll also mention is something you've gone through, which is injuries, because I think that's
Hmm.
an important aspect too. And sometimes injuries can then lead into things like burnout or loss of confidence, those
Yeah.
kind of things. Sometimes it can be like related. So when it comes to injuries, um, why do you think, I guess maybe this is the question, I don't know if it's a good question or not. Why do you think some people maybe take it much harder than other people? Like how people can like push through an injury, recover much more easily
Yeah.
versus someone kind of really struggles with it?
Yeah, this one's a tough one. So I am currently going through a pretty severe injury at this time. So I had to skip out on nationals and everything. So I guess I could speak from a from firsthand experience at this
Yeah.
point.
How are you going through it?
You know, a lot of ebbs and flows with like the injury aspects. I would say at the beginning of this injury part, there's a lot of unknown. And I was trying to prep for nationals, and every single day it's like a mental battle of like, can I compete? Am I not going to compete? Am I going to compete? Oh yeah, I could compete. Nope. Next day, like it's right back again. Like can't compete. I'm going through a back ligament strain. Uh, and so I think that creates a lot of mental struggle, a lot of chaos in my brain at least, because I want to compete, but I'm physically not able to compete, and that becomes a little bit of a struggle between the physical and mental kind of colliding, and now I have to choose which one's more important or which one is ultimately taking over, and ultimately it became a physical thing. Now there is also, like, I would say when things are out of control, out of one's control, it becomes harder as well. So now what are the things that are in my control? Well, I could still train. I could train around the injury. If it's a 0 through 10 pain on the scale level, as long as it stays a pain level above 2, then we're good. If it goes beyond that, we're not good. But what is an exercise I could put in its place? There's always a workaround. And I think that's an important thing for athletes to remember as they're going through the injury process. What else is in my control? Well, it's still in my control that maybe I could find a technique thing. It's still in my control that I could work on cues. It's still in my control that I could go to the gym. I just can't do maybe the one exercise that I really want to do. So I think it's important to remind athletes through an injury. And also, like, it's important to remember that your potential didn't just completely go away. You're dealing with something, right? So it's not a marker against your potential or a marker against that athlete's potential. It's just something that they're having to go through. And the rehab process is still training. We're still training. And a big thing for me that I've learned to do since I was way younger with the ACL injuries is that you learn to turn your rehab process like almost into a competition itself. So now I have a goal, which is, okay, well, I'm going to work through this stretch, this exercise, and each week I'm going to get a little stronger at that exercise, even if my body kind of wants to hold me back from doing it, right? So, the next week I feel a little bit better. cool, that's a win. I'll take that. That's a big goal of mine through the rehab process. So rehab is still training. Like, you're still training. I think a lot of the athletes forget that. You're still able to kind of go through a competition or a challenge with yourself just because you might not be able to compete or do your squats or bench or deadlift or whatever it might be. So that's a huge part. So learning to kind of reframe the rehab as a different entity rather than what you're telling yourself, like, my life is over. Now I don't know who I am. I'll never be able to compete again. And like, let's be real. I went through that also. I'm like, man, like, is this it? After 14 years of powerlifting, is this really it? Like, am I done? And then I kind of like slap myself in the face a little bit. I'm like, no, like, we're just it's the same thing that we've been through before. We're just going to work through it. Maybe it's not tomorrow. I'll be right back to feeling healthy again. But it's sort of a challenge for myself to say, yeah, I could work through this again. And I have even more information to be gained. Well, now I know that what causes a back ligament strain is like overuse of my back extensors as opposed to not using my glutes and core. Oh, like, I got that. From now on, like, always going to include glute and core workouts, no matter what. Even if I don't feel like it and it's my weakest muscles, like, always going to include those, So I think through injury, there's always something to be gained, and you learn grit, and you learn mastery, and you learn to work through all of it through the injury. So injuries are a blessing in disguise, in my opinion. They don't feel like it, but they are. I tell myself that they are. When I like really think about it, I'm like, yeah. Was it a loss ain't a loss? It's a lesson. Appreciate the pain. It's a blessing. So I think about that a lot. It's a good Jay-Z quote. It's a good one though.
I guess you're kind of like making me think of like the same thing. Like, let's say you get fired from a job, or you have like a relationship and you break up,
Yep.
or in this case, like an injury. It's like, yeah, what can you still take away from it and then like improve upon going forward to make it a positive rather than just like being miserable that this bad thing happened to you.
Yeah.
And I like this idea you said that you're kind of like turning it into a challenge or like gamifying the rehab. So like, if I suck at my side planks, I can only do it for like 10 seconds in my PT. It's like, well, can I work on getting it to 15 seconds or 20 seconds and an ultimate goal of getting it to 60 seconds. Same thing if you're doing whatever, single leg, stiff leg deadlift or whatever. So I like that aspect. Do you try and do that same thing as well? Of like, if you have like a lower body injury, well, let's try and push the upper body and go for some personal records on bench press, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's always sort of another path, and it just depends on like the individual themselves of like which path do you kind of want to go through. But there's also like smart training. It's not just like, oh, like I hurt my ankle and now let's go like max out on bench. I mean, there's smart training through that too. Like, we don't want that like inconsistency of your muscle development to be off even more now, like, right? We don't want those muscles to get even stronger and stronger and stronger while you can't do any lower body. So there's a balance, and I would say like smart training is important as well. And like any injury, there's always going to be a root cause of that injury. Well, I would say like I could think about ACL injuries, right? Why? Well, maybe because I didn't have the mobility issue, the hip strength, and so on. So that's going to contribute to knee issues and ankle issues, right? We didn't work on mobility for ankle stuff. So of course, like, yeah, ACLs are going to take a freaking hit, If we're thinking about a back ligament strain, it's because I don't use glutes and I barely use like core when I'm doing these movements over and over and over again. So like, what is the root cause? And now, can we develop that root cause? Can we work through that root cause? So I like to kind of contemplate that a lot. And sometimes I need help doing it because I'm in myself, and it's like, well, I just want to go deadlift. I just want to go squat, and like I can't do those things. So like now I don't know what to do, And then I become like almost like a beginner lifter again, and I'm like looking around the gym, and I'm like, well, what do I do now? So yeah, got a lot of help with that.
That's why, yeah, like, most athletes could still benefit from having a coach, or a coach could benefit from having another coach, because just having that third person perspective and tell them like
Yes.
you're being an
Yeah.
idiot.
Yes, my husband does that for me. He owns a gym and he's a personal trainer, but he's been doing it for 20 years. So he's like, yeah, you need to stop touching a barbell and deadlifting all the time in every single workout and like do this. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sore for like 10 days now. So yeah. So it's good to have that too, real life.
So now let's say someone listening to this podcast is dealing with one of these things we've gone over, injuries,
Mhm.
burnout, confidence issues, whatever, and they want to work with you with it to like get that third person perspective. How does that process work? So like, let's say someone,
Yeah.
goes and signs up, fills out the form or whatever,
Yep.
and it comes to you. What's like the process of actually working with a sports psychologist?
Yeah, so I would say that first and foremost, we're going to, I'll reach out to you. And once I receive your inquiry, I'll read a little bit about you. And then we could get the process started right away. So the first session is always going to be an intake session. So it's a 60-minute Zoom call, do virtual. So it makes it easy for people with busy days and routines and everything and demanding training schedules. So the first session is always going to be an intake session where we just talk a little bit about you, why it is that you're seeking, mental performance coaching, what it is that you need help with, what you've been struggling with. And maybe it's just a thing that you're going through that you just need. It doesn't even need to be a struggle. It could just be like needing a neutral party to kind of help you through some situation or a scenario or whatever it might be. So, um, part of that might be like coach athlete relationship. Maybe you don't want to talk to your coach about this thing and you need a neutral party who's going to kind of be maybe a little bit of a voice of reason or help you to gain some insight or maybe gain some new perspective or think about something a little bit differently. So it doesn't always need to be like some major struggle, major issue. But once we like kind of chat a little bit further, we'll be able to narrow in on whatever that presenting concern is. So say it is like coach athlete relationship things. And then at the end of that first session, we could kind of come up with a little bit of a plan, a structured plan of what it is that we're going to work through. What are your goals at the end of these sessions? My ultimate job, and I say at the end of these sessions, because my ultimate job is to sort of put myself out of a job. I want you to be able to self-regulate. I don't want to hold you forever. I want you to have the tools to be able to do this on your own and to go on and teach someone else the things that maybe they're struggling with. So, once we have the plan, we'll just decide on the scheduling and then we'll start working towards whatever goal it is that you find that's most important that you want to work on first and foremost. Maybe you're not sure, so we could discuss that a little bit further. And then we'll kind of get into, more of the details of how we'll work towards that goal. So.
That's cool. And I like that
Yeah.
concept because when it comes, for example, to a powerlifting coach, you get both aspects. You get maybe athletes that want to learn the behind the
Yeah.
scenes so they can eventually do it on their own. Then you have athletes like, I don't want to learn all this stuff. I'm busy with my job and everything
Yeah.
else. I just want you to give me the programming. So then they
Yep.
may be like more dependent on you long term. But for you, you're
Yeah.
like, hey, if you're coming to me for this thing, I want you to be able to go do it on your own and not
Yeah.
need me
No.
forever.
It's like I could think of certain professions I won't say, but they'll hold you forever, and it's like I don't want to be with you forever. Like I want to move on from you, right? So yeah, so I don't want to be one of those, and I've never wanted to be one of those. So it's they'll come to a point where it's like okay, like you're good, like you have it, like you're ready to do this on your own. We'll try it for a few weeks. If you need me again, we'll come back and then we'll reassess. But for now, like. Do this on your own. But, there's no like pushing you out. If you feel like you need it, then you need it. But also another big part of like these sessions is just a reminder that I'm not only teaching like or providing mental skills. Like it's not just skills like self-talk. It's not just skills like journaling or visualization. There's a lot more to that. I'm a big I'm a big root cause person. So it's like, why is this the thing that we need to work on? You know, have you worked on this before? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What can we improve upon? You know, is this the thing that works for you, or is it not completely? Like self-talk, why does it not work? All right. Well, I just didn't feel anything, right? When I told myself something. Okay, so let's try something different. Or maybe, you know, let's get to why you feel nervous when you go to the gym, or when you're going for a big PR, when you miss a lift, you know. So yeah, getting down to like really the essence of what the presenting concern is a big part of this whole thing.
I like that. And
Yeah.
as always, for people listening to us, we'll have the info like down in the description if they
Yeah.
want to kind of get in contact with you. So all information will be easily accessible for them. And while you're out down there too, I always say like, hey, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, wherever you're listening to. And as always, drop your comments of what you think about this episode. If you
Absolutely.
want to have Dr. Cohen back on and what topics you'd like to hear from her in the future, leave those thoughts for us so we know for future episodes what we can do. For the kind of last topic, kind of connected to what you just said regarding like mental skills, I kind of wanted to ask you, for people listening, if you want to kind of give them maybe one skill, would you go with like to practice? Would you go with self-talk, journaling, visualization? What do you think could be beneficial for them to look into and maybe try going forward?
Oof. I got two different answers, because I'll give you the answer that what I would say is very valuable for most people is going to be self-talk, because I believe that self-talk is really going to shape what it is that you believe in terms of the scenario, and then what you believe is going to be how you sort of execute. So if you tell yourself, I'm a shitty lifter, well, how are you going to execute? You're going to probably screw up everything, right? What you tell yourself is kind of what comes true. So I would say self-talk is probably the thing that I would suggest that most people work on, is what they're telling themselves, and it has to be specific, it has to be believable, and it has to be practiced. Those are the three things with self-talk. If it's not specific, like, I just want to do well. Well, what does doing well mean to you, right? Then it's not specific. So I need to get specific with self-talk. If it's not believable, like, like I am going to become a world champion, and you sort of are so far from that like reality at this point, like we're not even there yet. Let's get through our first local meet, then like let's bring you down to earth a little bit for a second. Yeah, you might very well go on to be a world champion, but let's get through your first meet for a second, right? So it needs to be believable, and then it needs to be practiced. If you just say like, you're going to execute this PR, and you've sort of never executed the PR in that way, well, then it's not practice. Like, we need to practice what it is that we're doing. So self-talk is probably the main mental skill. For me, for personally speaking, visualization all day. Visualization. I'm a 100% visualization girl. I will hone in on every little bit of detail that I'm doing in terms of my lifts. That's what I'm doing in competition. That's what I'm doing when I'm going through a PR or any of my training sessions, is just constant visualization, mental imagery. I would say that any elite level athlete across the board is going to be using visualization. You see like the Michael Jordans, Kobe Bryant's, visualization all day. See, cat's trying to get up here. So visualization is a big one for me. And, you don't need to be completely injury free to still run through lifts. And we've seen with like healing imagery that it sort of transfers over to getting right back. If you are able to work through that imagery quite often, that it's not going to take as long for you to get back to your training in the way that you were prior, if you get there.
That's great. I like both,
Yeah.
because self-talk, I think, is something I see more often, both positively and negatively. For example, sometimes for people negatively, you might see like someone who's maybe not naturally built well for a lift, or maybe just not naturally strong for that lift.
Yeah.
And so they think like, oh, well, I'm just a shitty bench presser.
Yeah.
And then because they think they're a shitty bench presser, then maybe they slack off when it comes to bench
Yeah.
press training, or maybe they skip them. I'm like, I don't have time to do it. I'll just skip it, whatever. It's my shitty lift anyways. I'll focus my squat and deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
And then because then they're not putting the effort they need to into that lift,
Yeah.
then the lift, stagnates or regresses. And then it tells them, oh, see, I'm a shitty bench presser. So then it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like we put it in a very simple context of like the coach who says like, that's my star player right from the beginning because of their stature, right? Because of their height, because of like they're more stocky as a lifter or something. That's my star lifter, right? And then they start treating them as such. I'm going to give you more feedback. I'm going to give you more like detailed technique work and so on. And I'm going to kind of ignore those other clients on my schedule because you're going to be my star lifter. Now, star lifter gets everything that they need. They get more feedback from coach. They get more technique work from coach. They get more playing time, if you will, in a different sport. And so what happens with all of that? It creates like this star player that comes out of that wasn't meant to be a star player. And now they perform better, and coach could say, yep, knew that was my star lifter, a star player. And then it kind of takes off from there. So yeah, exactly. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy or a negative self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I like the visualization. It's something that I don't do as much for myself or maybe even with my clients. But the one thing that came to mind that's like sort of visualization that like Jason and I do, and even like Matt Gary outside TSG does, is like walking the athlete through the competition venue before the competition 100%. Happens. So some of it obviously is like you're physically going through to see where the bathroom is, here's where the warm-up room is, this kind of that. But then like just taking them on the platform so they can just like stand there and visualize, okay, tomorrow this is where I'm going to be. These are where the referees are going to be. Here's where all the crowd's going to be. Here's where I'm going to see the lights. And here's where I'm going to become a world champion or something like that. And kind of like visualize it the day before it happens.
It's amazing. I like the power of the mind is like so freaking cool. Like even if I'm in training, even if I'm in the gym, like I could just like close my eyes and think about myself with like judges in front of me, right? And that just immediately puts me into competition mode. Now it's not only like just seeing it, it's now like feeling those feelings of like, oh my God, I'm getting like a little bit like that adrenaline rush. And okay, I got the adrenaline rush going. Oh man, like it's too much. I got to slow it down a little bit. Like the anxiety or the arousal, it's a little bit too much. That's not how I would compete. So I need to bring it down. Things like that, and just like visualizing, all right, when I see those red lights or when I see those white lights, how am I going to feel? And like, how am I going to move on to the next lift? Those kind of things. It's all visualization, all those scenarios are visualization. But really like honing in on detail is everything with visualization. If you could get it down to like the wire of the details of the place, the venue, what like color carpet you're standing on, things like that, then it becomes more real. So yeah, detail is everything. And then how can you manipulate your image? Can you go through your image and like, oh, like I went through my lift, my squats. I kind of do it right now, like going through my squats. Oh, like I set up, I walked out the bar, walked it out a little bit too much. Let me do it again. All right, I'm going to take one step forward, like manipulating your image. And now we got a perfect squat, right? So now seeing it is huge because you've already done it in your mind. Now just do it again. Do it the real thing. Now it's the real thing. It's nothing changed. You just now have like a little bit more of the weight on your back. And that's another thing you visualize, right? Think about the weight and the heaviness on your back. Oh, like it's pulling me down a little bit. It feels heavy. That's all right. Like we're walking out, Oh, it's going to be hard when I go up. Yeah, I feel myself grinding with the weight. That's visualization. We're not just talking about like seeing the image. Now we're actually feeling it in ourselves, So visualization's cool.
I love it. Hopefully people listening, if you're not already doing it, work on your self-talk and your visualization. And hopefully you all took away something when it comes to different areas like confidence, burnout, injuries. And like I said, hopefully we'll get you back on in a future episode to go over other topics that people can kind of take away from it. Is there any like final takeaway you want to give to everyone?
No, go train. Get off your actually listen to this podcast while you're training. That's what I suggest. That's my best advice.
Some people do like listening to our podcast while they're training, so they might be training right now.
Yeah.
Is it okay if people reach out to you on Instagram?
For sure. Yeah, 100%. It's Kateco 220. KATECO 220. So just feel free to send me a DM, reach out. I'd love to connect with you guys. So
yeah, and we'll have the links down in the description as well, so people can contact the Strength Guys or you directly. Again, thank you very much for coming on.
Much.
Welcome to the team. I hope everyone listening kind of took away a lot from this. And again, drop your comments with what your thoughts were and what we should talk about in the future when we get Dr. Cohen back on. And we'll catch you all in another episode of the TSG podcast.
Thanks, Coach Arian. Talk to you guys soon.